Okay, it's Garnet, and this is the last point in the basic concept section of the Neurolite Practical Guide for Beginners. If you're following the video series, you'll know where we're at. If you're looking at the paper, what you'll see is I'm still here on page 6. Like eating a meal is on page 6, and the last one is Neuroplastic Reinforcements. Okay, let's keep this at a basic concept. I'll be giving some examples in other sections of the guide of actual neuroplastic reinforcements, but what's the point? The point is that in the fire it to wire it, it's not impossible, but I'll say it's highly unlikely that you're going to have any kind of lasting change in brain behavior unless the information is interesting enough and repeated enough to help the brain change like that. Now you can get very, very fast changes. I'll talk about that later, the 4 different types. But there are changes, neuroplastic changes, that can happen like right away, seconds to minutes, certainly within hours. The tendency is easy come, easy go. That unless everything has been primed, that information is going to have an impact. There's going to be a brain change, but is that change sustained? Does the state become a trait? Little rhyming play on words there, but that's extremely important to appreciate in the whole principle of neuroplastic reinforcements. States and traits. You can have a state, and at that time it has all kinds of qualities that are whatever they are. But do they really form an integrated effect into the brain so that now the brain's behavior over a longer term has actually changed? Does it become a trait of that person or just a state that they happen to have been in? So state and trait have a very direct relationship to the concept of neuroplastic reinforcements. Reinforcements, I think the word is pretty obvious, that you do something, and in order for that to kind of stick, it needs to be reinforced. Sometimes it's called practice, if you're trying to maybe learn an instrument, a musical instrument, or a language. When you use the Neurolite, if you think that the Neurolite as an instrument and the light and sound as signals to the brain are going to really manifest as positive, enduring change, I think that's unlikely. It is part of the puzzle. It's part of the way that we can exercise the brain, help right now, and shape the brain. Neuroplastic reinforcements in the beginning are things that a person can do, but frankly, the ones that are the most powerful are the ones that start to become kind of a way of being. It's not so much of what you're doing as how you're being. So there will be neuroplastic reinforcements that are techniques. There's no doubt about it. Okay, let's say, physical. You've got a bad back, and you get certain therapies, you do certain yoga poses, you lift certain weights, you do certain stretching, whatever it is, and then hopefully you will learn, for example, how to get in and out of a chair. My first training was in an Alexander technique, like a million years ago, if you know Alexander technique, and one of the things they work with actually is the way the head leads and fluidity. And one technique was how to get in and out of a chair. I was quite fascinated by it because it was an example of how what seemed like kind of an isolated technique based on principles, actually should flow into a way of being. It wasn't, oh, what I do, it's how I am getting in and out of a chair. The idea that there is a way of, like, if I injured my back when I was a kid, a farm boy, heavy lifting, bad injury. So I learned from that, and to this very day it's still with me, how to lift. I mean, it's the famous thing, lift with your legs, not your back. So lifting with your legs, not your back, is an example of how a method using a technique can be reinforced with other methods and techniques, but in the end it becomes a way of being. Like healthy eating, at first maybe it's an idea that you learn in certain foods that you choose. After a while, it isn't a technique anymore, it's just the way that I eat. And of course you can still think about it, but it moves from a set of conscious, deliberated decisions to, and I'll use the word unconscious, but I don't mean that in a negative way, activities and styles that feel natural. When you don't do them, you notice it because it feels weird. Doing it when it's working is just, well, of course, that's the way that I get in and out of a chair. So, neuroplastic reinforcements, trying to keep it at a basic concept level, because that's the section here. And for a beginner using the Neurolite, just understanding the point that the session in and of itself will have benefit, will have effect, and helping a person realize that there is a way, starts off like techniques, there are, and I'll show you some of these techniques that are in the guide, that this gives you the appreciation that it's like in the beginning, like I have a set of reinforcements. You have them, you possess them. Then you move from that into I do the reinforcements. So it's actualizing what you have. You have them, you do them, and at a certain point you just are them. That's your way. So I would say it's like that with what I call a spiritual practice, is that you have a practice. Okay, that's nice, you have it. But do you do it? Okay, now I do my practice. But you're still separating the doing of technique from your life. Like, oh, I'm meditating, now I'm not meditating. You have a practice, you do a practice, and you are the practice. Just the way that you do what you do. So the idea of a reinforcement here gives you a concept to work with, an appreciation that to build a habit, to change for a state to translate into a trait, just taking the magic pill is unlikely to give you what you want, that you have to reinforce it. That if you go to a counselor, to a psychologist, and in that psychology session certain things are explored, certain things are appreciated, but then when you leave, you also have to reinforce that insight, reinforce that advice. I mean, the session was remarkable. It's great to have help like that, insight like that. It's great to have a Neurolite session. But understand, and understand that reinforcing it, living it, yeah, there are bridges between, have, do, and be. There are bridges between the light and sound into simply, being more aware, or having better memory, or deeper exploration of yourself, or more creativity, or better focus. All these things that are so attractive. When you have them, you might not even notice them. You notice them when you don't have them. I mean, what's that saying? You don't know what you've got till it's gone. You don't know what you've got till it's gone. Well, having a taste of that should be motivation. And I would say that, in the past, because of the wellness work, I was sometimes, you can say even oftentimes asked, what is the best exercise? You're talking about physical, because I did a lot of somatic work. And my answer, it wasn't really a joke, but it sounds clever enough to be a joke. I say, oh, it's easy, I know exactly the best exercise for you. They say, really? What is that? I said, well, the best exercise is the one you're going to do. And this comes into this area of neuroplastic reinforcements. If you have the Neurolight for yourself and you do sessions, or you help people and you give them sessions, then there's the so what element of, okay, compliance. Those of us that work in wellness and healthcare know that it's a kind of a crazy maker. The issue of compliance, that you say, okay, here's the session, boomity boom, love it, great, now, consider this, or watch this, or what's your action plan, however you do what you do in terms of helping the person with the trailing off, the follow-up, or whatever you want to call it. And it's a challenge. It's the weirdest thing in the world. No, it's not the weirdest thing. It's a very weird thing, at least, how most of us know a whole bunch of things that are good for us. We've even done them before, and they work. And then we stop. We stop complying. This issue of compliance fits into this area of neuroplastic reinforcements. So anyway, I'm going to stop there. There will be some examples of some very good and generic ones. I'll talk about that. This is the last, if you're following the page 6, and that's the end of the section on basic concepts. Thanks. Bye.